Marwaan, you have been following the election in Thailand since the campaigning until last night, and we know today how Move Forward Party decided to join hands with Pheu Thai Party and other four parties. What's your take that after election things have moved quite fast? What's your take?
Well, the first impression I have is what really has happened on Sunday. Some analysts are describing it as a political earthquake, and I think that's a legitimate observation. The center of gravity in Thailand has really shifted into the camp of the democratic, progressive, liberal section. Because if you look at the total number of votes, percentage of votes that just Pheu Thai and Move Forward got, it's over 60%. This is, whereas in 2019, they got 40%. This amounts to an absolute majority. Yeah? And in any other country around the world, when you have this kind of outcome, the very next day after the elections, you will find a lot of celebration, emotions expressed on the wave that they rose. Yeah? So today we have Kunpita talking about a coalition. I mean, that's a positive step to bring these parties that were on the democratic liberal camp together. But Thai politics is very unusual, right? We are still not sure what's going to happen during this phase of political transition. And given the past, there can be a lot of political knives out there being sharpened to prevent this very positive moment to bearing fruit and taking Thailand forward.
But it has been predicted that way all the time about unpredictable situation in Thailand, that anything could have happened. But for the country to have come to this point, is it beyond imagination?
It is. I mean, those of us who have been covering elections, and I've been covering Thai elections since 2005, right? We always look for a crusade, a wave that gathers momentum towards the last phase of the election. And what was very clear was Move Forward had a crusade going for them and it basically peaked just around the time of the elections. But still, nobody imagined, even those of us who have been covering elections, ever imagined that a party that was formed at the last elections would emerge victorious purely on a platform driven by policy, professionalism, and programs that were meant to deliver, and not the old school patronage politics of the past. So this is an awakening moment for Thai politics, something Thais have to be very proud of.
Marwaan, you have been quite familiar with Thailand. You have been following Thai politics for quite a while, probably more than 10 years. What's the risk that could have taken place after this, as far as you can see?
Well, see, Thai politics based on the 2017 constitution is very anti-majoritarian. If you really look at the constitution, it's like the Ahmad who drafted the constitution after the coup fear democracy and fear popular sentiment. So they have built all these traps and almost shackles to prevent the voice of the people really being achieved and really for creating their own government. So what we're going to see now is sort of a black hole in Thai politics, whether the people's will be recognized and Kunpita leads a coalition to form a new government, or they will be subject to a lot of threats that have been inbuilt to prevent democracy prevailing.
And from international perspective, regarding policy of Move Forward Party, it's about 112, Article 112, Least Majesty Law. And last night, Kunpita also said that he would keep his promise. He would push the reform in the parliament. As far as you can see how the situation will evolve from this, if this issue will be moved forward by the party.
So one thing that I realize about Thai politics in Thailand unfolds three dimensions. The first dimension is the politics of theater, the politics of fanfare, and what you see on the street leading up to the elections. That is what has happened. The next phase of politics is the politics of backroom deals and networking. Yeah. And of course, the final phase of Thai politics is a subject you and I can't talk about, right? It's a realm of the unspeakable. Now, Kunpita and Move Forward want to bring the unspeakable into the open. And how they handle that, because it's a political sensitive subject, requires a lot of maturity, because on the one hand, yes, they've promised their constituency that they want to address this issue, but they're dealing with a country, they're going to deal with a lot of objections. I mean, I can't see, for instance, the 250 senators, which essentially is a proxy military party, are just going to stand aside and support this venture. So we very well see the Senate objecting to this move by Move Forward, and they may have to negotiate this very sensitive transition and also dealing with a very politically sensitive issue.
Marwan, you said this is time that Thai people should celebrate. It's time for celebration for the whole country. And if you look at Thailand from regional perspective, what's the position of Thailand at this very juncture?
I mean, just look at the positive message this gives the world, right? In mainland Southeast Asia, until this election, mainland Southeast Asia was like a democratic dark hole. You had the oppressive, ruthless regime in Myanmar. You have a one-party autocratic state run by Prime Minister Hun Sen. You have two communist parties in Laos and Vietnam, where no kind of free space for freedom of expression, for civil space to flourish was possible. Thailand was also borderline in that case, because if you look at the shrinking of civil space during the 10 years of Prime Minister Prayut, it was not promising for democracy. But overnight, these two parties, certainly led by Move Forward, have raised the bar and offered a lot of promise. And there's something else we should not lose sight of. You know, in 2020, during the COVID period, you had the Black Lives Movement, right? You had youth disgruntled and a lot of youth discontent that suddenly came out in the open. Thai youth themselves did their own bit during this period. Thai youth have been talking about a lost decade, a lost generation. And suddenly they have galvanized around the promise of hope and the promise of a future and voted for the party that Kunpita led Move Forward. In fact, at the expense of poor Thai, it's almost like we are witnessing a handing of the baton, a changing of the guard from an old way of democratic, pro-democracy parties, which was more populist and centrist, poor Thai, to a progressive liberal party full of promise led by Move Forward, which should offer a wonderful lesson for young people around the world. If you want to organize, if you want to change politics in your country, Thailand offers a wonderful example at this point in time. I don't want to get carried away because of the political landmines that lie ahead.
It's very good word, political landmines, because we know that even though right now, 75 voters have voted and show what they want, but obviously the so-called camp of democracy camp would have to face the hurdle or the challenge from so-called conservative camp in Thailand. What's the political scenario that you can see in the near future to make sure that we are not get carried away by the victory of Move Forward Party?
Well, the first period that we need to watch very carefully and be quite vigilant is what happens during the 2-month period that the Election Commission has to declare the results, right? And then you see the Constitution has built in certain so-called independent organizations that might use this occasion to target the mandate of Move Forward or even the mandate of Pheu Thai. So if that happens, I fear that it could precipitate a political crisis, because Thai politics essentially is a politics of paralysis. It's paralyzed partly because of the fault lines and the polarization of the country's politics since 2020. Now, here's an occasion where the country, in fact, from the conservative military royalist faction, could demonstrate some maturity and accept the fact that 60% of the electorate has shifted away from their way of thinking. This is Thailand of the future. But if they continue to be tone deaf and just want to impose the Ahmad style of politics, top down, where sort of deepen the Thailand's identity as a semi-feudal society, ignoring what the electorate has said, then they are creating the road towards a much bigger crisis, which we have seen unfolding every time since the 2006 coup, where when you disenfranchise people, you get an uprising of rage, first the red shirts, and then you had the young Thais of 2020, and who knows what lies ahead. And that's quite worrying.
But on the positive note, what do you see as the brighter future for Thailand from now on?
Okay, so I think the fact that young people have found their voice is important. If you look at the way in which the votes moved into the Move Forward camp, I think the way they campaigned was quite interesting. They did away with the old Banyai, Nakleng, Godfather campaign, and they went for online campaigning. They were very creative in creating messages. In fact, some very old families in the Bangkok area, for instance, were defeated by young, enthusiastic campaigners who excited the electorate with novel, innovative ways of campaigning. And that opens up a lot of space for people there to bring about change without having to stick to the old model. And that's a very positive development for Thailand's democracy.
Thank you very much, Marwan, for joining me. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very much,
view.
Nattha. We appreciate
ขอบคุณ
the
ค่ะ
time today. Thank you.